Welcome, science friends, to sex linkage Punnett squares. We're going to use Queen Victoria and her family as an example for making our sex linkage Punnett squares. Queen Victoria's family is famous for having hemophilia. This is a sex-linked trait that is passed down throughout generations. And way back when, with a lot of royalty, they liked to keep royalty in the family. So they married a lot of their own family, cousins, very close relatives. Now, Queen Victoria was something called a carrier. When we're talking about sex linkage inheritance, carriers are females, and they're females because of that X chromosome redundancy. There are females who carry recessive genes, but because of the redundancy of the X chromosome, they often carry that gene, but it is not expressed. So they carry that recessive trait even if they do not express it. But because it's on an X chromosome, the sex chromosome, it is passed on to their offspring and their children. Well, that means if those children are males, there's a higher likelihood that they will express that recessive gene because they don't have that redundancy of two X chromosomes. So let's look at hemophilia. We're using X's and Y's for our large letters, and for hemophilia, we're going to use the letter H. Hemophilia is a recessive sex-linked trait, so we must have a little h if it's a female, or just little h with a Y chromosome for males because they only have the one X chromosome. To set up a sex-linked Punnett square, we need to first break down what the gametes are going to be on the outside of our Punnett square. So here we have the circle to represent the female and a square to represent the male. A female is going to donate one X chromosome to each of her gametes. So we're going to have an X and an X for our two gametes on the outside of our Punnett square. Attached to those X's are the letters for the genotype of hemophilia. We have a big H on one, and if we're looking at a carrier, they're carrying the recessive trait on the other X chromosome, so we have a little h for the other X chromosome. And we're going to put them on the outside of our Punnett square. It doesn't matter if it's the top or side, I just decided to put the female on the side. The male is going to donate an X chromosome. This male does not have hemophilia. He has a capital big H, and he has a Y chromosome. And since this gene is only found on the X chromosome, there's nothing that goes on the Y. The Y is just there. It's just by itself. It does not carry this gene, so we don't put an H on the Y. We're going to put the X with a big H and the Y on the top of our Punnett square. Doesn't matter if it's the top or side, I just decided to put it on the top. Now we just fill out our Punnett square like normal. Our first offspring will have two X's, one from mom, one from dad, and both of those H's are big H's. One big H from mom, one big H from dad. The next offspring to the right, it will be male. It has one X from mom and one Y from dad, and the H attached to the X is a large H, so they will not be hemophilic. The third child, again, will be female, an X from mom and an X from dad. Big H from dad, a small h from mom means that this female child will be a carrier. She does not have hemophilia, but she carries that recessive gene for hemophilia. She could possibly pass it down to her children. Our last child is a male, an X from mom and a Y from dad, and they have the little h from mom. And because it's just the little h, there's no redundancy. The little h means that this male child will have hemophilia. This is why males often have those sex-linked traits expressed, because whatever they get is what they express. So when we're looking at these different alleles, women, or biological females, have three different types of genotypes. They have what's called normal, which is homozygous dominant. They have the carrier status, which is heterozygous. Females can also be homozygous recessive for X-linked traits. In this example, we're using color blindness as a sex-linked recessive trait. So a normal woman in this circumstance would not be colorblind. The carrier would not be colorblind because they still have that big B to help protect them. But the homozygous recessive individual will be colorblind because they have both recessive alleles in their genotype. For men or males, there's only two possible genotypes. They could be normal, with the dominant not colorblind in this example, or they could be colorblind. Whatever the male gets on his X chromosome is what will be expressed. So females, again, have that protection of the redundancy of two X chromosomes. The male does not get that advantage. That was sex-linked Punnett squares. I hope it helped.